Hello, champions! Today is another chance to get closer to your dreams. Keep going. You think she's pulling away because you did something wrong, because you missed a text, said the wrong thing, failed some invisible test. But a lot of the time, her distance is not a verdict on your value. It's pressure leaking out of her inner world in a form you keep taking personally. And if you need truth more than comfort, subscribe now. Because when your emotions get loud, you do not need more romantic fantasy. You need reminders that keep your mind clear, your standards high, and your self-respect intact. Here's what it really means when she seems distant. It does not automatically mean she's losing interest. It does not automatically mean another man replaced you. It does not automatically mean you should chase harder, explain more, prove more, fix more. Sometimes what you are seeing is female anxiety, emotional overwhelm, unresolved fear, internal conflict, or simple uncertainty showing up as withdrawal. And if you do not understand that, you will turn someone else's tension into your own self-destruction. That is where most men lose themselves. You feel the distance, and your nervous system panics. Your mind starts filling in blanks. You replay the last conversation. You search for hidden meanings. You rewrite your last message 12 times. You become hyper-aware, hyper-reactive, hyper-available. That's called abandoning your center. The moment you stop standing in reality and start negotiating with imagined scenarios, you are no longer responding to truth. You are responding to fear, and fear makes weak men perform. It makes you text too much. It makes you explain what did not need explanation. It makes you offer reassurance nobody asked for. It makes you overcorrect, over-pursue, over-invest. You think you are saving the connection, but often you are suffocating it. Why? Because anxious energy reads as pressure. Pressure creates more distance. Then more distance creates more panic in you. That loop has destroyed more potential than rejection ever did. So let's strip this down clearly. The misconception is simple. You think distance always means disinterest. The hard truth is this. Distance can mean disinterest, but it can also mean confusion, overwhelm, fear of vulnerability, distrust shaped by past pain, stress unrelated to you, or the simple fact that someone does not know how to stay emotionally present when feelings become real. Why does that happen? Because closeness sounds good in theory, but closeness demands exposure. It demands trust. It demands consistency. It demands emotional risk. And a lot of people want love without the vulnerability that real love requires. That tension matters. A woman can like you and still get anxious when the connection deepens. She can feel safe one day and unsettled the next. She can want your presence and still retreat when intimacy starts asking her to be honest with herself. That does not mean you are weak. It does not mean she is evil. It means human beings are complicated, and unresolved fear does not disappear just because attraction is present. But here's the part you cannot afford to miss. Her anxiety is not your assignment to solve. Read that again in your mind. Her anxiety is not your assignment to solve. That single sentence can save you months of overthinking and years of emotional self-betrayal. Because once you decide your role is to manage her feelings, carry her uncertainty, decode her silence, and earn your way back into her emotional comfort, you stop being grounded. You become a caretaker for ambiguity. That's called emotional overfunctioning, and it is one of the fastest ways to lose respect in yourself and attraction in her. You need to understand the root of what is often happening. When she seems distant, sometimes she is not calculating. She is dysregulated. She is overwhelmed. She is unsure what she feels, unsure what she wants, or unsure whether getting closer is safe. Maybe past disappointment trained her to pull back when she starts caring. Maybe chaos feels normal to her, so calm makes her suspicious. Maybe she is dealing with stress from family, work, identity, or old wounds she has not named. Maybe she likes you but does not yet trust the pace, the seriousness, or her own ability to sustain something healthy. And what do? You immediately personalize it. That is the mistake. You take a shift in mood and make it an indictment of your worth. You see slower replies and call yourself not enough. You feel less warmth and start performing harder. But reality and fantasy are not the same thing. Silence is not always rejection. Slowness is not always betrayal. Withdrawal is not always replacement. Sometimes it is anxiety. Sometimes it is conflict. Sometimes it is someone reaching the edge of their emotional capacity and stepping back because they do not know how to stay present without feeling exposed. Now listen carefully because this is where the hard truth sharpens. Even if her distance is caused by anxiety, that still does not mean you excuse inconsistency forever. It still does not mean you volunteer to be misunderstood indefinitely. It still does not mean you build a relationship on potential and patience alone. Understanding someone is not the same as tolerating endless instability. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-neglect. That's called confusing empathy with self-abandonment. And that confusion will cost you dearly. It costs you your peace first. You start waking up and checking your phone before your feet hit the floor. You start reading tone into punctuation. You start adjusting your mood based on whether she feels warm or cold that day. Then it costs you your discipline. You skip your routine. You stop focusing on work. You stop training hard. You stop sleeping right. You stop being a man with direction and become a man in emotional weather. Then it costs you your identity. You no longer know if you are responding to who she is or reacting to what you fear losing. And once that happens, you are done. Not because she destroyed you, but because you handed your center away. That is why the reframe matters so much. When she seems distant, do not ask first, how do I get her back to how she was? Ask, what is actually true right now? That question changes everything. It slows you down. It returns you to evidence. It brings you back from fantasy to fact. What is actually happening? Has she communicated stress? Has she shown a pattern of pulling back when overwhelmed? Has her effort dropped for a short period or for a long period? Is she temporarily anxious or structurally unavailable? Those are not the same thing. One requires steadiness, the other requires departure. And too many men cannot tell the difference because they are addicted to hope. Hope is beautiful when it is tied to truth. Hope is deadly when it is used to deny patterns. You say, she's just going through a lot. Maybe. But is she still showing up with honesty? You say, she's scared to get hurt. Maybe. But is she taking responsibility for how that fear affects the connection? You say, she needs patience. Maybe. But has patience turned into you accepting crumbs? That's the real question. Not what she could become. Not what she might mean deep down. What is she actually building with you now? That is where mature men live. In the now. In behavior, in patterns, in truth. And let's get more specific, because some distance is not coldness. Some distance is tension disguised as detachment. She may reply, but flatter. She may engage, but less deeply. She may seem present physically, but emotionally foggy. She may go quiet after moments of closeness. She may pull back right after connection gets strong. Why? Because intimacy activates fear in people who are not fully settled within themselves. The closer it gets, the more real it becomes. The more real it becomes, the more risk it carries. Risk of disappointment, risk of dependence, risk of needing someone, risk of being seen. And for some people, especially those carrying unresolved emotional anxiety, that risk registers as danger. So what do? They create space, they delay, they soften, they withdraw, they become ambiguous, not always to manipulate, sometimes to regulate. But again, Do not twist that into permission for chaos. Explanation is not exemption. Understanding the cause does not mean accepting the outcome forever. This is where you need the archetype in your mind. Picture the man who does not crumble when energy shifts. The man who notices distance without immediately spiraling. The man who can care deeply and still stay rooted. He does not chase shadows. He does not interrogate every silence. He does not perform emotional gymnastics to hold someone in place. He is calm, not because he feels nothing, but because he has mastered what he feels. He has boundaries. He has purpose. He has weight in his own life. He does not build his identity out of how warmly someone texted him on a Tuesday. He knows who he is before the conversation and after it. That man is steady. He listens more than he assumes. He does not punish distance with ego games. He does not respond to uncertainty by becoming controlling, needy, or passive-aggressive. He remains open but not exposed without standards. He remains warm but not desperate. He remains clear but not forceful. He understands a brutal truth weak men hate hearing. Your strength is not proved by how intensely you pursue. It is proved by how firmly you remain yourself when you are not being reassured. That's the man she can trust if she is capable of trust. And if she is not, that is still the man who walks away with his dignity intact. You need to become harder to shake. Not colder, not crueler, harder to shake. There's a difference. Cold men shut down. Grounded men stay open without losing structure. Cold men use distance to punish. Grounded men use distance to observe. Cold men want power. Grounded men want truth. Which one are you becoming? Because if every emotional shift from her turns into a personal crisis for you, then the relationship is not the main problem. Your lack of inner steadiness is. And that is good news because your steadiness is trainable. So here is what you do. First, slow your reactions. Do not answer anxiety with anxiety. Do not answer her distance by flooding the space with words. Stop reaching the instant you feel the connection wobble. Stop, breathe, wait. Let a moment be a moment instead of turning it into a catastrophe. Space is information. If you fear it so much that you must immediately fill it, you will never learn what the space was trying to reveal. Second, return to facts, not feelings alone. Facts. What has she actually said? What has she actually done? Is this a brief period or a repeated cycle? Has she acknowledged what is happening, or are you carrying the whole emotional burden by yourself? You stop guessing, you stop inventing, you stop trying to read invisible subtitles under every interaction. That's called discipline of perception. Third, stay consistent in yourself. Train anyway, work anyway. Handle your responsibilities anyway, eat right, sleep right, clean up your day, clean up your mind. The fastest way to become emotionally weak is to put your whole nervous system in the hands of someone else's inconsistency. You stop. You stop. You stop making her mood the center of your world. Fourth, if the distance continues, address it directly and calmly, not with accusation, not with pleading. With clarity. You seem a little off. If something's going on, I'm open to hearing it. If you need space, say that clearly. If your interest has changed, say that clearly too. That is strength, not loudness, not pressure, clarity. You invite honesty once, maybe twice if the foundation is real. After that, you watch behavior. Fifth, match investment to evidence. This matters. If she is anxious but communicative, steady yourself and give the situation room. If she is anxious and accountable, there may be something real to build. But if she is distant, vague, inconsistent, and unwilling to own the impact of that pattern, then stop overinvesting in potential. Stop paying premium emotional prices for uncertain access. That's called self-respect. Sixth, redirect your attention to your mission, not as a distraction, as alignment. Purpose is not an accessory in a man's life. It is structure. It is ballast. It keeps you from becoming emotionally inflatable, blown around by every gust of uncertainty. A man with no purpose becomes obsessed with relational turbulence because he has no larger gravity pulling him forward. Build that gravity. Build a life that does not collapse when one connection becomes unclear. And let's go deeper, because many men secretly enjoy the drama more than they admit. They say they want peace, but they feel most alive when they are chasing certainty from someone unpredictable. That's called attachment to instability. If calm feels boring and uncertainty feels magnetic, you do not just have a relationship problem, you have a pattern. And until you confront that pattern, you will keep calling anxiety chemistry and inconsistency depth. No, depth is consistency under pressure. Depth is honesty when it would be easier to hide. Depth is staying present when vulnerability rises. Depth is not mixed signals with good lighting. You need to hear that cleanly. Sometimes the most attractive thing you can do is nothing dramatic at all. No grand speech, no emotional overreach, no forced rescue mission, just composure, just patience with standards, just calm observation, just a willingness to let truth reveal itself without trying to manipulate the outcome. Because the goal is not to manage her anxiety into affection. The goal is to see whether she has the capacity to meet your steadiness with honesty, effort, and emotional responsibility. That is a very different frame. One is begging for connection, the other is evaluating compatibility. And men with self-respect evaluate. They do not just desire, they assess. They do not just feel chemistry, they study character. They do not just ask, how much do I want her? They ask, how does my life feel around her? Clearer or more chaotic, stronger or more unstable, more grounded or more consumed? Those questions matter a lot. Because even if distance is caused by anxiety, repeated unmanaged anxiety can still make someone unavailable for the kind of relationship you need. You are allowed to understand that without becoming bitter. You are allowed to feel compassion without volunteering for confusion. You are allowed to say, I get it, but I cannot live inside this pattern. That is not cruelty. That is maturity. Here's another truth most men resist. The more you fear losing her, the more likely you are to lose yourself first. And losing yourself is always the bigger loss. Always. Because if she leaves and you stay intact, you can rebuild. But if she stays and you disappear inside the relationship, you have built a prison and called it love. Do not do that. Do not become a man who is easy to emotionally destabilize. Do not become a man who confuses access with commitment, intensity with safety, or potential with reality. Do not become a man who keeps trying to prove his worth to someone who can only feel secure if he is chasing. That is not love. That is dependence performing as romance. The reframe is simple and ruthless. Her distance is data. Nothing more. Data. Sometimes it points to temporary overwhelm. Sometimes it points to deeper incompatibility. Sometimes it points to wounds she has not healed. Sometimes it points to the fact that your timing, pace, or emotional styles do not fit. But it is data, not destiny. You read it. You do not worship it. You do not collapse under it. You let it inform your next move without defining your identity. That is masculine clarity. You stop needing every woman's warmth to feel solid. You stop reaching for certainty from outside before you have built certainty within. You stop asking, what if I lose her? And start asking, what do I refuse to lose in myself while this unfolds? That question will make you dangerous in the best way. Hard to manipulate, hard to rush, hard to pull out of alignment. So if she seems distant, do not panic. Observe, listen, clarify, respect what is true. And if there is something real there, your steadiness gives it the best chance to breathe. If there is not, your steadiness protects you from self-betrayal. Either way, steadiness wins. That is the whole game. Not control, not chasing, not decoding every signal until you drive yourself insane. Steadiness. Boundaries, purpose, clear eyes, a calm nervous system, strong self-respect. Those things will carry you farther than any perfect text message ever will. And if this lands hard, good, it should. Because some part of you has been waiting for permission to stop spiraling and start standing upright again. Take that permission now. Let your chest rise. Let your thoughts slow down. Let your standards return. Let your life get bigger than one person's temporary uncertainty. You are not here to become an emotional technician for every woman who goes quiet when things get real. You are not here to beg clarity out of confusion. You are not here to earn stability by overgiving. You are not here to shrink your dignity just to hold someone's attention. You are here to become a man who can handle truth. If she is anxious but honest, you can meet honesty. If she is overwhelmed but accountable, you can meet accountability. If she is distant and unwilling to communicate, you can meet that with boundaries. Not rage, not pleading, boundaries. That is power. Real power is not making her stay. Real power is staying rooted in yourself, whether she comes closer, steps back, or leaves entirely. Real power is being able to love without kneeling before ambiguity. Real power is knowing that your peace is too expensive to trade for mixed signals and emotional smoke. So reset now. Stop chasing the shift. Stop worshiping the anxiety. Stop narrating yourself into rejection before reality has spoken. Stop turning another person's emotional weather into your permanent climate. Do this instead. Stand still. Tell the truth. Watch patterns. Guard your peace. Build your body. Build your mind. Build your purpose. Build a life that does not beg anyone to stay because it knows how to move forward with dignity either way. That is the man. And when you become that man, something changes. You no longer need to force outcomes. You no longer need to scramble for reassurance. You no longer need to decode every silence like your survival depends on it. You become calm enough to see what is real and strong enough to respond accordingly. You stop being ruled by fear and start being led by principle. That is freedom. So hear this clearly before you leave. Her distance may reveal anxiety, but your response reveals you. That is the deeper lesson, not what she feels. What you become in the presence of uncertainty. Do you become smaller, needier, more frantic, or do you become clearer, steadier, more self-respecting? That is the test. That is the turning point. Pass it. Because at the end of the day, you are not trying to win confusion. You are trying to build a life that only clarity can enter. You are not trying to become irresistible to emotionally unavailable people. You are trying to become unavailable to chaos. You are not trying to be the best option in someone else's unstable season. You are trying to become a man whose peace cannot be rented by anyone's inconsistency. You are the answer. Not because you control everything, but because you can control what matters most. Your standards, your pace, your focus, your boundaries, your self-respect. Hold that line. And if you want more truth like this, more clarity that cuts through emotional noise and puts you back in command of your own mind, subscribe. Stay around voices that sharpen you, not fantasies that weaken you. Stay close to a community built on discipline, discernment, and self-respect. If you are becoming that man, you belong here. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more inspiring content.